Later that day, Suzaku grits his teeth as wind whips through his hair and catches on the end of his trench coat. It's a welcome change from the sluggish heat of the past few days, he thinks, and yet still, the thought of going back inside is tempting. But he promised Lush, and he's almost done, so he can take a few more minutes of this. The wind mercifully dies down a bit when Suzaku finishes nailing the last of the rungs to the stringers. With this done, he picks up the shipwright's adze at his feet, one that Lush salvaged on the second year, tossed among the rest of the tools and promptly forgot about, and runs along the ladder's sides, and then wherever it can fit between the rungs. Though he supposes it doesn't really matter now, not when Lush has the code. Sighing, he looks over his handiwork and hoists one end of the ladder over the fence. There, one of Lush's sheep watches him boredly as he straddles the ladder and braces his hand against the stringers near the top, testing its strength. "What do you think?" he asks in jest. The animal merely looks at him, continuing its program of slow chewing. "Yeah, I thought so." He slings the ladder over his shoulder without further comment, picks up the tools along the way, and makes his way slowly back to the house. He's going to miss this place, he realizes without really wanting to. It's not as lively as the city, or nor as sophisticated as his Kurugi shrine. But, something about how quiet it is here, how cut off they are from the rest of the world, is oddly appealing. Even the insufferable climate has begun to grow on him, and it's barely been a week. But it's better than he deserves, he reminds himself as he places the ladder on its side beside the house. And he made another promise 7 years ago. This is why he can't stay. C2 should be here a bit before noon tomorrow, Lush tells him as soon as he enters the house. The plan was to have you take the jet back alone. Will that be alright? Sure. He thinks of Nunley, how firm she was in that last press conference, and how delicate she seemed in the gardens. It's disconcerting to think that, in less than 36 hours, he'll be donning the same mask and suit once more. He hopes the last order he gave was enough to keep Schneisel in check. Packed already? I didn't really bring much, he confesses. He deposits the tools he borrowed in their usual spot before padding into the kitchen. Lush is busy stirring something in a large pot. "Sick of me already?" jokes weakly. "If self-deprecation were a virtue, they'd have built a monument in your honor by now." Lush rolls his eyes and Suzaku chuckles at that, but stops when he whirls around, bringing the ladle to Suzaku's lips with remarkable dexterity. "Taste." Suzaku shrinks back on instinct, protesting, "Hot! Hot!" "Oh, for the love of—" Lush glares at him before blowing on the liquid petulantly. It's milky, but the taste reveals chicken stock, and a hint of ginger and pineapple. "More salt? What?" "It's good," he comments, licking his lips. "What is it?" "Something different." Lush stirs once before sampling it himself. He hums tonelessly around the edge of the ladle. C2 hates it with a passion. "Which is why you made enough of it to last the rest of the month?" Suzaku laughs, pointing at the massive pot. "It's the least I can do to spite her," Lush smirks. "For ditching you?" "For what she did to you." Lush smiles at him fondly, and opens the cupboard door above his head with one hand before he can think of anything else to say to that. "Here, help me with this. There's one last thing I want to show you tonight." It's been 14 years since he's last seen the sky like this. Here, without the blinding lights or the desperate flare of a military encampment, there are only these, the darkness, the moon, and thousands of stars. "And that one?" Lush nods, pointing up. Suzaku squints. Lying atop a thin blanket in the middle of a field, blades of grass tickling the skin of his arms, the nighttime breeze prompts a pleasant shiver, and it carries with it the smell of wildflowers. "Which one?" "That one." Lush gestures more precisely, somewhat straining his arm, as he traces out the constellation. 7 stars, 3 close together in the center. He remembers this now, from 14 years ago atop the hill behind the Kurugi shrine. "Orion." "Excellent," Lush smiles as he brings his arm down. "Though the people here call it something else entirely." "What do they call it?" he asks curiously. Lush tells him and his lips quirk. He tries to pronounce it several times, but the prolonged L's and the harsh, truncated K's elude. "Don't worry about it." A soft chuckle cuts through the rustle of leaves and the bleating of a faraway lamb. "It isn't important. Of course it's not important. It's not—" Suzaku frowns and then shoots to a sitting position when something bright streaks across the sky. "Did you see that?" Lush, however, doesn't even budge. "It's probably not what you think it is," he drawls. At Suzaku's pointed stare and the obvious unspoken question, he shrugs. "Aircraft, maybe?" "Really?" He scowls, not buying that in the slightest. When Lush merely raises an eyebrow, Suzaku shakes his head and looks back up. Whatever it was no longer there. If I ignore what you just said, do I still get a wish? A wish? He doesn't need to look to know that Lucius is quietly laughing at him. Are you serious? No. Suzaku catches himself, realizing how winsome that sounded. Drawing his knees up to his chest, he locks his arm around them and stares back up at the sky. You don't get to make fun of me, he teases back. You were the one who told me about it, remember? I remember, Lucius sniffs. Your point? I guess I don't have one. Suzaku smiles wryly, locking his eyes onto the 3 stars making up Orion's belt. We believed it, though. Was that really so long ago? It's funny how you're a kid and you see a shooting star. You make a wish. You get all excited because you know it's going to come true. He chuckles. And then you grow up. He feels Lucius' eyes on him for a long time before the other man speaks. What would you wish for? Suzaku wrinkles his nose. I'm not telling you! Then it won't come true! Lucius groans, digging his knuckles into his eyes. You are such a child, he grouses. Suzaku merely grins at that. Tired of straining his neck like this, he leans back and stretches out on top of the blanket once more. He laces his fingers behind his head and takes a deep breath. No smoke, no perfumes, no artificial air fresheners. Just this. I wish we had a second chance, he murmurs softly. You know, to make things right. He doesn't get much relief as a reward for admitting this. Not that he was expecting any in the first place. Still, the world doesn't stop for this confession. The breeze just keeps on blowing, the leaves keep on rustling, and the sheep keep on bleating in the distance. He keeps on breathing. And the silence stretches on for so long that for a moment he begins to suspect Lucia may have fallen asleep, but a quick glance proves him completely wrong. When he sees Lucia fixing him with an unreadable stare. What? You're an idiot, Lucia mutters, propping himself up on one arm. Why'd you say that aloud? Now it won't come true. Suzaku nearly chokes on laughter. So you do believe, he manages between snickers. From now on, you don't ever get to call me immature. And then Lucius is kissing him, hard, and he doesn't really understand why. He doesn't understand, before his eyes slide shut, why Lucius are smoldering, a dark and glittery violet, even in the dim moonlight. He doesn't understand the desperate press of Lucius' hands on his shoulder, or why Lucius pulls back, only to whisper, "Shut up," before kissing him again, harder this time, with his fingers tangling in his hair until Suzaku finds he can barely even think. But he welcomes it anyway.